Hello and welcome to day 2 of the understanding the sense and logic of homeopathy. So here we're going to talk about what is health according to homeopathy. And I want to start with a little bit of history regarding the founder of homeopathy, Samuel Hahnemann. He had already led a very productive career as a physician, researcher, educator, prior to developing his method of homeopathy. And in one of his earlier articles about his process, if you like, he wrote in 1782, "My sense of duty would not easily allow me to treat the unknown pathological state of my suffering brethren with these unknown medicines." So, the doctors at the time didn't know the pathology, and they also didn't know the true medicinal value of the medicines they were using. It was kind of random, if you like. Generally blood remedies, generally organ remedies like liver and lungs and so on, skin remedies, but not knowing which would help, and oftentimes they made people worse. He writes further, "The thought of becoming in this way a murderer or malefactor towards the life of my fellow human beings was most terrible to me. So terrible and disturbing that I wholly gave up my practice in the first years of my married life and occupied myself solely with chemistry and writing." So 1792. So it wasn't until 1810 that he wrote about homeopathy. So he spent the next years perfecting his treatment method. He called it homeopathy by uniting two Greek roots, homoios, meaning similar, and pathos, meaning what one feels. So homeopathy consists of treating sick people with remedies which in crude, large doses are capable of producing in healthy people symptoms that are similar, homoios, and even stronger to those of the disease a person is suffering. So we see that in medicine now, that those medicines that work most effectively are capable of producing the symptoms they treat. We look at that with Ritalin in hyperactive children, for example, where the Ritalin, if you're healthy, would give you a hyperactive state. So it's very important to understand his philosophy and the thinking about what he was proposing. And these thoughts on health and healing have really yet to be disproven because they are part of nature. They are the natural way in which we heal and recover. So I've written out some of the first 5 concepts known as aphorisms of his treatise of homeopathy called the Organon of Medicine, which was published in 1810 when he was 55 years old. So these simple ideas that he proposes are actually much deeper than first glance suggest. And just a quick note, he revised the Organon of Medicine 6 times between 1810 and his death in 1843. So here he puts out the basic postulates, ideas on healing and health. So number 1, the physician's only mission is to cure the sick. It is not to speculate on the nature of disease. 2, the ideal cure is a rapid, gentle, permanent, and removes the whole disease in the shortest, least harmful way, according to easily comprehensible principles. 3, if the physician understands what is curable in disease and understands what is curative in medicines and understands how to apply the medicines according to well-defined principles to that disease and knows how to remove conditions which prevent the patient from getting well, then he is a true physician. 4, the need to recognize and remove the maintaining causes, so those things that are bad for one's health, basically. 5, pay attention to the exciting cause and the fundamental cause, which is usually a chronic disease, including the patient's character, activities, way of life, habits, etc. So the whole person. So what is the exciting cause? Well, they might come with a pneumonia when really they have a deeper disease, heart disease, underneath that. And so all these aspects of a person's health need to be considered. So, 6, there is no need for metaphysical speculation. Diseases are the totality of the perceptible symptoms. So what he's saying there is we don't infer ideas about a disease, be it just an idea. Like you might think, well, I have mold in my house causing me my exhaustion. Well, unless you test for that, and perhaps externally in the house and internally by markers that could show that you're in reaction to mold, you won't really know. So you can't guess. Another idea here is that diseases are the totality of the perceptible symptoms. So the body tells you in many ways what is wrong with it. So to cure, you only need to treat the totality, not symptomatic palliation. That means not just relieving individual symptoms or the sufferings. A single symptom is not the disease. So we don't just have heart disease. We don't just have high blood pressure. We don't just have a migraine or painful periods, etc. These are part of a whole system of derangement that we need to explore and understand in order to cure it. If the symptoms are removed, the disease is eradicated. So you might think that's in contradiction of what he said in terms of a single disease is not a symptom. No, not symptomatic palliation. And what he's really saying is that all the symptoms, sorry, I'm going up and down too much. If the symptoms are removed, the disease is eradicated. So that means all of the symptoms, not just one symptom. So 9 is a bit more esoteric. It's the physician wants to make people healthy so they can use their body to get on with the higher purposes of their existence. So he also writes about the difference in acute and chronic diseases. I'm not going to really go into that because it takes a lot of time. But if you read this, you're going to read about the differences between chronic medicinal diseases produced by the drugs allopathic unhealing art. And so he had a lot of strong words against the practice of medicine at the time, and rightly so. I mean, I think even doctors of today would be critical of some of the practices. And so he would make a big distinction about what was a natural disease and what was a artificial disease caused by the drugs at the time. Anyway, so what I really want to show here is what does healing look like with homeopathy? So the homeopath uncovers the historical patterns of illness in order to find a remedy that will be the most specific support for the individual's state of response in this moment when you're prescribing. There are 3 important areas for a homeopath to understand in assessing their patient. 1, the general susceptibility of the patient to be sick, determined by hereditary. Then 2, the environment and all factors of stress that it might cause on that person and their body. 3, the way one conducts their life, which includes hygiene, diet, exercise, and mental hygiene. So already he was ahead of his time by a lot of years in talking about hygiene and a healthy, balanced life. The imbalance, which is the disease state, is in fact only the expression of this predisposition of ill health. That is, as a result of these 3 factors. So another important concept in homeopathy is how we get better. In what direction do our symptoms change? So in 1865, in a magazine called the Hahnemann Monthly, Constantine Hering, a German doctor living in Philadelphia at the time, very, very influential doctor. He's seen sitting here in his late 70s in his study, reading, a very interesting man. Anyway, he proposed a direction of how a person gets better, and it's written in this shaded area. Suppose a patient experienced the symptoms he suffers in the order A, B, C, D, E. Then they ought to leave him in the order E, D, C, B, A, if the cure is to be permanent. Whereas if we just treat the A symptom and the B symptom and don't get at the E, D, and C symptoms, we're not curing that person of their illness. So he drew the conclusion that the most recent symptoms of the patient should thereby take priority when determining the choice of homeopathic remedy, since they should be the first to disappear. According to what is now termed Hering's law, the most recent ones are chosen first in a hierarchy when choosing a remedy. When multiple complaints exist together, it is important to know when each one began. So that sort of speaks to itself. And then Hahnemann mentions a lot about something called the vital force. And here we're going to determine what that is with a couple of quotes and this general synopsis here. It is that energy which maintains life in the individual. It is unique from person to person, each being endowed with his or her own quality of it. The vital force is a unique principle, distinct from chemical or physical phenomena. So it is an underlying force. I would say force because it's an energy. It is what sustains you. It's not your atoms and blood. It's what sustains that. It's the very deepest part of ourselves, and touching on the spiritual for sure. So here we have a couple of quotes. James Tyler Kent, very interesting homeopath from the late 80s and early 1900s. He wrote, "Vital force and soul are in the cell as well as in the body. The same thing rules the remedy, and stripped of its grossness and placed upon the tongue, it will be taken into the economy instantly." There he's describing how a remedy can match that force and have an effect on the whole economy, meaning the whole of the body and its functions. He writes, "I went 1,000 miles once to place a dose of zinc,um, a remedy made of zinc metal, on the tongue of a paralyzed woman who felt its effects in less than 30 seconds, and in 6 weeks her paralysis left her." So he there is, attributing what is that response, and it's now we call it vital force. In my own language of modern times, I use the word vitality quite a lot. Health is that balanced condition of the living organism in which the integral, harmonious performance of the vital functions tends to the preservation of the organism and the normal development of the individual. So that's another point about how health is sustained by this vital force and creates the balance within it. This was from Stuart Close, writing in The Genius of Homeopathy in 1924. So there's a little summary here. You could sort of digest this, but I'll read it anyway. Health is the body's natural ability and freedom to self-regulate. Where it is unable to do so, we can, with the use of the unique symptoms expressed, help guide and restore that self-regulating process. So, in other words, we give, in essence, an inoculation. A homeopathic remedy is an inoculation not to a disease, but to a state of reaction that the ill person is in. So that remedy is chosen because it can produce a similar state of reaction in its toxic form. And as you know, we give it in a small dose. So it's a really interesting case. It's only a few weeks old, but I wanted to include it because it really shows the kind of effects homeopathy can have and supports these ideas that are talked about, Hering's law, vital force, and what are the totality of symptoms. So I'll try and be brief. It shouldn't take too long. It's a very interesting case of Parkinson's. So he's a 76-year-old man. He has Parkinson's affecting a few systems. He has delusions, diarrhea, alternating with constipation actually, urinary incontinence, which is very severe, heartburn and nausea, awful, very tortured symptoms for him. Plus he has lost a lot of muscle tone and is wasting away from weight loss. He's really a skeleton. So I had seen him a couple of years prior and had given him Bowen therapy, and it was before he was diagnosed with Parkinson's. And I recently, saw him again. And he wanted to focus on homeopathy as he decided to stop all the standard medical treatments. He was taking 2 forms of levodopa, an anti-anxiolytic for depression and his state of psychosis that he would go into. Antacids, proton pump inhibitor, something for his incontinence called Flomax. Sometimes there's other names for those drugs. And why he decided to simply stop all his medications is that he was feeling a lot worse overall from them. And I saw him after 4 days, no medications. He was actually feeling better in all of his symptoms. They were all a little less severe. So it shows you those that were getting better were probably aggravated by the medications. And of course, the doctors would refute that and say, no, it can't be that. He felt the medications were creating the disorder in his digestion, whereas nausea and diarrhea and urinary incontinence were so severe to make his life unbearable. So my hope was to find a remedy to support the normalizing of his digestive system and provide him some better function to absorb nutrition again, because he's literally wasting away. And I chose the remedy named Carbo Vegetabilis in a very low potency 30C for his treatment based on the following symptoms and using a software to calculate by a numerical calculation those remedies that might be best for his symptoms. And I used very basic symptoms. You might have a hard time seeing these, so I'm just going to zoom in and you should see it better. So these are just characteristics of his state. He's worse in the evening. He has a staggered gait, Parkinson's gait. He's worse while he gets up from bed. He has an endless hunger despite losing weight. He has movements in his hands, some tremor. Heartburn, diarrhea. His muscles are very tense in his limbs. He has very anxious dreams, which are delusional, but generally anxious. He can't drink. He loathes drinking water. Yet he could have coffee. He has a cough with mucus in the morning, but not in the evening. And of course, the incontinence. So I'm just going to go back to the normal size. So just to talk about this a little bit. So there are several remedy choices. Now, these are all remedy abbreviations, different remedies as a sum total of how strongly they are represented in the symptoms that I chose. Now, he has other symptoms. I haven't put everything in, but I've generalized what are his areas of concern and what are the intense symptoms first and foremost. And actually, the remedy I did choose came out as the number one choice. So we gave it. And there are a lot of remedies, but I wanted to focus on his digestive system primarily. So 2 days following, he'd seen an improvement in the heartburn and nausea, but everything else was the same except his urinary incontinence at night. He wanted to know if he could return to the Flomax medication, and I asked him to wait one more night. And as expected, since stopping the levodopa, cardidopa, he had worsened in his Parkinson's symptoms. His gait was worse, and he's overall worse. So the only things that had really improved were the digestive system. So no diarrhea, and no heartburn, no nausea. So I did a follow-up a week later, and so he's been taking the Carbo Vegetabilis, this is the abbreviation, I shouldn't have the equal sign there, twice a day on average. No reflux, nausea is better too. He took it today for bad diarrhea and only has taken it again since about 4 days for the diarrhea. And it wasn't determined whether it helped or not in this moment because he took it the same day I was talking to him. So overall, his gait is worse. It's much worse towards the afternoon. Frequent urination, day and night. So that also hasn't improved. He's very tired after exertion. He has an itching, dryness in his ears. And his toes, when he walks, bend and claw the ground. And that may be common to Parkinson's, yes, but it may not be common to the remedy that we would choose. Carbo-veg did not have that. So in analyzing, we wanted to see, well, what's better, what's not? As I had hoped, his digestive system was improved, except for the return of the diarrhea. So he'd already taken the carbo-veg, but we now know that carbo-veg is a remedy that affects his digestive system positively, but is not affecting his other Parkinson's symptoms, the bladder, the bowels, and his gait, or tremor. And so far, he's very happy, extremely happy to not have the nausea and the heartburn and the reflux. So looking at the same symptoms pretty much, I went almost for the same. I used the same chart and took out some of the symptoms that were no longer long. I left diarrhea in because he had it again, but I took out the constipation and something else. But I added in a couple of other symptoms about his state of mind. One of them was, I think I took out the anxiety because that was also better. And I left the dreams anxious. I hadn't taken that out, excuse me. But I did add in something about consolation. So when people ask him, how are you? How's it going? He gets a little bit off-put. But looking at all the remedies, I went through them and read about them. Some of them were appropriate. I had already given him 2 years ago this remedy, phosphorus, and it didn't have a good effect. So aconite, nitricum acidum, natrum myrrh, staphylos aureus, phosphoricum acidum. These two I knew affect the nervous system. And when I was reading staphylos aureus, it had the unique symptom of his toes clawing. That was very unique to that remedy. And given that it was almost equal in strength, how well it was representing most of the symptoms, I decided to give it. And following up 6 days later, now he's a man who's Mexican and Spanish speaking, and my Spanish is not so detailed. It was hard to hear him on the phone, so I will be doing a better follow-up. But so far, so good. He's having a very good effect on his walking. His daughter had told me that he's walking very well and taking up his exercise again. The nighttime urination is better. Better in la noche is better in the night in Spanish. So my Spanglish is showing up. So diarrhea is better overall. It's less. He's not getting up at night for that. Constipation overall less. So how that is measured, I don't know yet. But this is enough to just give you a sense that we're affecting some of the Parkinson's symptoms. And his feet has improved. They're not tense and in that sort of clawing state. So a plan would be to wait. And I'm sure I'll do a follow-up pretty soon with AM. So it really shows how there is an order and a hierarchy to our recovery and health process. So that's it. It was a little long. I promise you the next 3 lessons won't be as long, but just to follow up on that case took a little bit extra. So thank you. Hope you're enjoying this. Let me know. And we'll see you tomorrow for number 3 of the 5-day challenge. Thanks a lot.